Hey everyone, so we're back from our second plastic surgery consult. This one was with UCSF and it was pretty incredible, you guys. So, the level of care is just so different being at a top rank hospital and facility. Um, it was just really night and day. And not that there was anything wrong with the consultation that we had last weekend. I really don't have anything to compare it to because I've never consulted for plastic surgery. So, again, a lot of this is really, I have no idea what to expect. Suffice to say that last week, I think if you saw my previous video, the guy was very competent surgeon. The before and after pictures were amazing. They do this work all the time. But he wasn't concerned about my BMI. He wasn't concerned about my autoimmune. He didn't ask me any questions about wound healing, like nothing. Where at UCSF, from the moment the surgeon walked in the room, and even her assistant had asked me questions. But when the surgeon came in, she really sat down and she was like, tell me about your autoimmune. Tell me about your previous surgeries. How did you heal? And that's a big deal, right? She had concerns about my BMI. She doesn't know that I'm necessarily a candidate for the deep flap the way I want. She also doesn't even know if she can get me back to my size. So that was a little bit shocking and concerning. So just two very, very different appointments. Now, that being said, it really did enlighten me to a couple of facts that I want to share. One is just when you're in an area of unknown, like I am, right? I know that I need to have these surgeries, or I should have these surgeries as a preventative. And even if you're having a surgery that you need to have or want to have, etc., really have multiple consultations. Because for me, again, I have no experience in this area. I don't really know what to expect. And the differences in the surgeons was great, right? Guy who was like, yeah, I can get you there, no problem. Like, we do this all the time, right? And she was very much in the weeds of, I want to know all of your medical details and history so that I know that we're going to give you the best results. We're being risk averse. Like, again, it really is just a different level of care. So I really highly recommend that anybody in this situation get multiple consultations, because it is very, very different. And I think you need that for a surgery of this size. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is, I'm a very personable person. I like to feel connected to the people that I'm around and going to be working with, doctors included. The first guy was not warm and fuzzy, and I'm not looking for somebody to be my best friend or whatever. He wasn't super personable, but he was super competent, right? And she was kind of that Goldilocks place of both. She was very personable and kind of more in my lane. And then she was also very doctor hat on, probably even more conservatively risk averse than what I'm used to from a surgeon, right? So, and I appreciate that, because she asked me questions I didn't even think of. She got into my scleroderma. How was I diagnosed? What were the issues I was having? Have I had X labs run before? Just stuff that I hadn't even thought of. I have a history of miscarriages, and one of the things that came up was, do you know if you can clot? And I had never heard that before. And so she was asking me that. So now we're running a different panel for those things. So I just feel like the level of care with UCSF is way above. And that's great. Now, the challenge there, and sort of a little bit of the disappointment for me, was she said she wasn't sure if she could get me back to my size, and that she doesn't know if I'm a candidate for deep flap because of my scleroderma and the connective tissue disorder. Because if you're not familiar with scleroderma, it is a connective tissue disorder, and it has challenges with there's a lot of different challenges, but in essence, where this is related, because you would essentially be taking tissue from one part of the body and moving it to another, that is connective tissue, right? So there is some concern around needing to make sure that my body can actually handle the deep flap. So wasn't even expecting that, had no idea, because that didn't come up anywhere in my research. But then again, I wasn't putting two and two together to have to think about how my scleroderma, if at all, would play into that, because in the complicated world of autoimmune, while I have scleroderma, I am not presenting, right? So the disease isn't fully active within my body, which is fantastic. But it's still a problem because I am symptomatic. So those of you in the autoimmune world understand the land of gray, which is where I live most days when it comes to this disease. So, but anyway, it was really fascinating that she kind of picked up on all the things in my medical history to really look into whether or not I would be able to have this surgery. Additionally, we had conversations around whether or not I was going to be having a full hysterectomy or a partial hysterectomy, and if that would be done at the same time as the deep flap. So not to cross the streams, but we got to cross the streams here in order for me to explain. So as part of being a BRCA1 carrier, you are at extreme risk for both breast cancer, but also ovarian cancer. So part of doing these preventative or these prophylactic surgeries is actually having not only the breast tissue removed, the double mastectomy and reconstruction, but it's also having either a full or a partial hysterectomy. Now, a partial hysterectomy would be removing the ovaries and the fallopian tubes, right? Except for in some cases like mine, I already have fibroids. So there is a good chance that instead of them just taking the ovaries and the fallopian tubes, that they will take the uterus as well, which means that that's a full hysterectomy. So for those of you considering this surgery, right? So for me, they would probably look at doing it all at once, you guys. So this is a very big surgery, and this is where it gets complicated, because they would not only do the double mastectomy and then do the deep flap reconstruction, which is again taking the tissue from the belly and moving it up to the breasts and using that fat tissue. But then they would also be going in and doing the full hysterectomy at the same time. So that's a lot. It's a really big surgery. So again, that comes with a different level of risks, right? We're talking, again, that's probably leaning on a surgery that's now closer to 12 to 13 hours, possibly 14 hours. So we really need to make sure that my body can handle everything. So now there's an additional coordinated dance while we're looking at whether or not I can become a candidate for deep flap. But also how that would play into doing the hysterectomy as well. So now we're kind of pursuing that with some doctors as well, just to, again, do all the due diligence, which I fully appreciate, because I want to do this and I want to survive and I want to thrive, right? I don't want to do these surgeries and then be sad or mistaken or broken afterwards. And now with any surgery, there is always that risk, but I really do appreciate this extra due diligence. So let's also talk about what happens if for some reason, I'm not a candidate for a deep flap. Then my options are keep my tissue and monitor, see if I get cancer. Not a fucking fan of that. Going flat, not really a fan of that either. So then it's looking at putting implants in my body. I think you guys have seen my other videos. If you haven't, go and look at it. I'm not a fan of doing implants because of the fact that I'm autoimmune, because of the fact that my body already looks at stuff as though it's foreign invaders and wants to fight it off. Like I wouldn't be stoked to put implants in and have my body go, yeah, no. So that sucks. So it gives me pause in this, right? Again, it's kind of one other thing to consider, because this is not a road that you want to rush down. Like, you don't want to take years necessarily, in my opinion, to make this decision. But you have to know what you're getting into as well. So now I have to consider what happens if I am not a candidate for a deep flap. What does that really mean for me in terms of my options to reconstruct this area of my body? And I don't know. I have to really give that some thought. The other thing is, you know, if she tells me that she doesn't feel that I am a good candidate for deep flap, this other surgeon does think that I'm a candidate. So then I could take what I know from her and still go and see him, maybe ask some further questions, have a more detailed conversation, and see if I feel comfortable with him and moving forward with doing this. I don't know, right? I am looking to try and get at least 2 more consultations on the books with plastic surgeons so that I can really vet this out properly in my own mind and be prepared for it, right? Because it's a lot, right? It's a lot to take, remove tissue, right? Remove your breasts and then take tissue from another area of your body, move it around, and, stitch it back up, right? Like you're sore in your stomach, you're sore in your boobs, your whole body is going through a trauma, right? It's all for the good of things. But nevertheless, it's a lot to go through. And throw in a hysterectomy in there while you're at it and just, boom. I will have to say, though, that I like the Big Bang approach because I would like to not have multiple surgeries. When you do the deep flap, also, I guess I should say this for those that don't know, generally you have a revision surgery after, and you can have multiple revisions. And really that has to do with making sure that you're as full as you want to be and getting to your size, or if you experience fat necrosis, which can happen, in which case then they excise the fat that's died, and they fill you back up with new fat and kind of hope that adjusts. There's also the, needing to make sure that you're, symmetrical, all of those things. So you can have multiple surgeries. Those are obviously much smaller surgeries. But they're surgeries nonetheless, right? So now think about if you had to do the deep flap and then do the hysterectomy and then do a revision surgery. It's like surgery. Nobody wants that. At least I don't, right? If I can avoid it. So I do like the idea of the Big Bang approach, but it's a fucking lot, right? Like, let's take off your breast, let's move your tissue, let's take out your insides, and let's sew you back together. It's a lot. It's a lot. So we'll see how that all comes together. So for now, it's doing a little bit more reading and research. It's getting these tests done. It's a CAT scan of my abdomen. It's getting these specialty blood tests around clotting and some other factors. It's really letting her do some research, talk to the specialists on her side, and figure out from her perspective as a surgeon, does she think that this is a good option, or do we really need to consider something else, right? In the meantime, I need to work on being as healthy as I can, which means trying to lose a little bit of weight, trying to build up my cardio strength and my muscle tissue so that I can be in optimum performance or optimum health to take on these surgeries, given that they're going to be so big, right? And give my body the best support I can so that it can support me in healing. So I think that's it for today. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to me. I'll try to answer them as best I can. If you're interested in following along, subscribe for the journey, because really, for me, I think this is the best way to get the information out to people. Social media kind of cuts off the videos, and I just need to kind of talk through it in real time. I'm not interested in kind of doing a lot of editing around the videos. Maybe that'll come in the future. I don't know. but this is how we're going to roll for now. So thank you for listening. I hope this helps for somebody out there who's in the same boat as me. And like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. Have a great day.